Welcome to Community Connections with Children's Services Council of St. Lucie County. I am just one of your hosts, Sean Boyle. With me is
Ashley Mott.
And welcome to the half-hour radio program that airs every Sunday on 104.5 The Flame at 10 a.m., which is also a podcast called Community Connections with Children's Services Council. But because of a wonderful partnership with St. Lucie Public Schools, we come into this very well air-conditioned studio to bring the video version of this show once a month. And if you're listening to on the radio and you want to see what our faces look like, with the word of caution, at least for this guy, you can look up your cable provider, just look up WLX TV, or do it the way I do. Go on YouTube, look up WLX TV, St. Lucie. You'll find all their programming, including this show, which, believe it or not, Ashley, goes back to like 9 years.
It's really, sometimes I don't believe it's been that long.
She was in high school.
Yes, that's accurate.
But this show is all about, besides a little comedy and a little humor, is all about connecting you, the listener, and this month, viewers, to resources and things that are available in our great community we call St. Lucie County. Now, we at the Children's Services Council, particularly Ashley and I, despite doing this for 9+ years, this isn't our strength, this isn't our forte, but what we do at the Children's Services Council, Ashley, myself, the entire team, including the board, we work on 5 priorities. And those priorities are, 1, making sure every baby's a healthy baby. I gotta count it. 2, stopping child abuse before it happens. 3, keeping kids off the streets. 4, keeping them in school, and 5, keeping them off drugs, alcohol, and other risk behaviors. And we do this by funding, developing, and making available programs in those 5 priorities for all families in St. Lucie County.
And obviously this show is a great place where we get to bring some of those programs on so you can learn more about them, but we do have a couple different ways that you can also learn more about them. One of them, Sean has props as usual.
I'm ready for my Vanna White roll.
And this is actually, I'm happy to report, I just got a phone call before we walked into the studio today. Our new family guides are ready. So,
oh, good. So don't ask for this copy because it's outdated.
We have our brand new family guides, and so we're really excited about those. They have a quick summary of each of our funded programs along with contact information. So if you have a place of business or a church or a group that you want to distribute these to, please give us a call. Let us know. There's actually a form you can fill out on our website at cscslc.org to request some of these, and we'll make sure that the family guides get out to you.
Do you remember, and I don't know why I'm sidetracking on this, this family guide used to be about
Huge.
40 pages.
Yeah, I do.
Which was great. It was very informative, except when you had to do community events, and you're like, let's bring 100 guides. And
Yeah.
you're like, no, I don't want to carry that much weight. So this is great, quick and handy. And as Ashley mentioned, if you have a business, church, whatever, civic group, and not only will we bring these to you, but if you'd like for us to speak to your group in a fairly entertaining way, I think, we'd be more than happy to. And again, it's all about connecting you, the listeners, and our residents to the resources that are available.
Absolutely. There is a copy on our website that's available to download the new version. Really, not a whole lot of changes year to year, but we do have a new program this year.
Cover,
a couple new. The cover does change. Yeah. That's true. But we do have a couple new programs this year that are kind of exciting. So one of them we did just recently interview on the radio show, Project Lift. So really excited about that program being here in our community. Definitely learn more about them if you haven't.
And I would also say that if you want to connect with us, besides obviously tuning in every week is a great way to connect. Watching once a month is even a better way, and particularly if you have problems sleeping. But if you want to learn more about us, make sure you're on Facebook, and I'm sure you are, because how else would you know what your friends from high school are doing? Look up Children's Services Council, make sure you put in the St. Lucie County, click the follow, and we post and update, whether it be inspirational messages, informational messages, or activities that are happening with families every single day.
All of the things. It's a good place to stay in touch.
So something exciting is happening. We were talking before we hit record on here. You and I are going to be doing some manual labor on this coming Saturday.
We have some work coming up, like real work. But I don't know, some of our Facebook followers will definitely remember earlier this year, we partnered with the City of Fort Pierce, the Fort Pierce Sunrise Kiwanis Group, and several other community partners for a community build that they are doing to rebuild the playground at JC Park. So that's up on South Beach in Fort Pierce. It had been in disrepair for a while, and it is a well-traveled park for residents and visitors, I think.
A very, very cool location.
Very cool location. We were really excited to be part of it. We actually sponsored the design days, so I had the opportunity to visit some elementary schools where they asked the kids, what is it that you want to see in the park? What kinds of things do you want included? And then based on that feedback, they came up with a design plan, and this week they are building it. So
Yes.
there is a giant team of volunteers working with community partners to actually put the work in. So it's community designed, community built, and we'll be out there this weekend working on that as well.
Now we know this broadcast airs all month, so some people may be watching and it's past the build date, and you know it's the week of October 10th. But if you're like, oh, I missed it, or quite honestly, I don't want to do manual labor, they have sponsorship opportunities, and I say that because I'm currently in chamber leadership.
Yeah.
Class of 39, clearly the best class ever, because apparently that's what you say when you're in leadership. I will concede that we probably aren't the best class ever, but one of the things that we did was all of us chipped in money and we bought a picket on the fence.
Oh, very cool.
So there's great ways that, whether individual, again, a congregation, a civic group, or even a business, there's ways to stay involved.
That's very cool. So I don't know if you remember this, but when they rebuilt Kids Crossing Playground, which might have been 10 or so years ago, my brother and I have our names on a picket at that playground that goes all the way back to when they first built it. My mom and dad did when we were very young, when they first built it, but we have a picket there.
We should go out, take a field trip.
We need to see it.
And go take a picture.
I agree.
You and your brother. That would be fun.
We'll do it.
Also, before we get to our guests, and there's a couple of reminders that we talk about very frequently on the show. One is Healthy Kids Insurance for your children. Hopefully you have that. If not, you can call the Treasure Coast Food Bank. I don't have my glasses, so I can't give you that number right now, but that information's on our website. The other one that we want to bring up, and it's really kind of like the Swiss Army knife, if you will, of programs, because they can address a lot of stuff, and it's really, at the heart of it, it's an information and referral. If you need, hey, I'm having issues paying my electric bill, you can call 211. Hey, I'm having issues with my family and my child needs services, you can call 211. They'll let you know what services are available. They also have this great thing where if you have children ages 0 to 8, they can do what's called ASQ, which is some type of screening tool, a developmental screening tool, which is clearly an acronym that we cannot remember, but you can do that as well through the Help Me Grow. But more importantly,
I got it.
Okay.
Ages and Stages questionnaire.
Yes, that's it. I knew what the last one was.
See, I got it.
Ages and Stages
Just
questionnaire.
took me a minute.
Eventually, we're on top of this. But I will remind everybody that if you are struggling, if you just need somebody to talk to, and when you're going through some type of struggle, maybe sometimes it's harder to talk to somebody that you're close with because it's a level of vulnerability, if you will. But if you just need somebody to talk to, a reminder that 211 is also a crisis line.
Yep.
And I believe that number has actually changed to 898?
988.
98. I had 3 numbers to memorize. 988 or 211. But if you are, or a loved one is experiencing something, it doesn't matter if it's right now in the afternoon or if it's at 3 in the morning. There's a live body there to talk with you and kind of talk you through whatever crisis you're going through. It's so important. I would ask, anybody that's listening, please give out that number 211 because, we're all going through something, right? And at sometimes, and it's usually not during the day when you're around people, it's usually when you're alone is when it kind of feels like it comes to a peak.
Yep.
Give out that number so that somebody could have somebody to talk to and kind of get through that, or get through that situation not alone.
And I would just, as a reminder as well, when you're thinking about sharing that number with folks, they do have trained specialists for teens. We know that that's a really vulnerable population, especially right now with a lot of the things that they're experiencing. But they don't have to call, they can text. There's a chat feature on the 211 website. So there are a lot of options. Just remind teens in your life that there is somebody that they can talk to if they feel like they need to do that. And there's a lot of different ways for them to connect.
And if anybody has teens, you know full well that their preferred way of communicating is text.
Yes, it is not verbal.
I can
Definitely
remember having to text my daughter, who was just in the house, that dinner was ready because I kept calling her and she wouldn't respond. But she responded to the text.
That's accurate.
All right, we have a guest that's patiently waiting.
Who really specializes in
perfect segue.
that age group. Maybe preteens is more.
And apparently this is the month to wear green, of which neither of you told me.
So sorry.
I do have green somewhere on there.
We'll send a memo next time. No, we're really excited to have Casey Wood with us from New Horizons of the Treasure Coast. And for anybody who is not aware, New Horizons spans, I feel like, 1,000 varieties of service in our
Very
community.
comprehensive.
Very comprehensive services. We have a special affinity to the student assistance program, obviously. But I don't know, Casey, I know you guys are recognizing a couple of things going on this month. So do you just want to kind of gloss over all of the things that one could find at New Horizons, and then we'll talk more specifically about student assistance?
Just the top 10. We
Yeah.
only got 20 minutes left on this show.
Okay.
Real quick.
We are a very comprehensive mental health agency, but our program is prevention. So we span from substance abuse and bullying prevention all the way to detox, inpatient recovery programs, programs for children, programs for adults, outpatient, inpatient. We are the Receiving Baker Act facility. We have a mobile crisis unit. There's just tons of resources available through our organization.
And before, you just reminded me of something. Before we get into the student assistance program, which is kind of your specialty, if you will, I want to remind everybody that 2-on-1 coordinates very directly with New Horizons for the mobile crisis unit.
Yes.
So when you're if you call and there's a crisis, whether it's happening directly to you or your neighbor or whoever, they will contact New Horizons and mobilize that.
Right, absolutely. Yeah, they're a great resource to connect individuals to what's available when you don't know yourself. And when you're in a crisis, you don't have time to think about what you need to find.
Right. So let's talk about the student assistance program, because it's one of those, it's one of those programs that we offer that's really universal.
Yes.
If you have a 5th grader, and if you're watching at home, go get your 5th grader, because they're going to recognize this program.
Yeah. Yeah, so we are a substance abuse and bullying prevention program. You mentioned the 5th graders. So one of the contracts that we have with the school district is to assist the 5th grade classrooms in receiving the 5th grade Too Good for Drugs program, which meets a statewide mandate that all students in 5th grade should receive a substance abuse prevention curriculum. It's a comprehensive curriculum that we provide. It lasts for 10 weeks. It's one time per week for 45 minutes. In all of the public schools, we do partner with some of the charter schools as well, but because they are not under the umbrella of the public school system, they are not required to participate, but a lot of them do. And we spend time with the students, educating them on how to set goals, how to make a healthy decision, how to manage their emotions. So it's a really comprehensive program. There's 7 weeks of material before we even start talking about the short-term and long-term consequences of using substances. And then we touch on tobacco and nicotine, because we know that tobacco isn't really as big of an issue as it was maybe when we were younger. Now it's nicotine and vaping. And then we also talk to them about alcohol, and that directly relates to the science behind their developing brain and how alcohol use impacts their brain development, and the many reasons why you see the side effects that you see with alcohol use. And then we talk to them about the short-term and long-term consequences of marijuana use as well.
So one of the things that I think is so interesting, and maybe drastically different than when we were in school and we received the just don't do it conversation, is that brain development piece. Because when I was growing up, I absolutely wanted to know the reason behind all the things. I wanted to know why things worked, why they didn't work, what was happening. And so I think that teaching the development piece, the impacts on development, the impacts on decision making, that's really important, because it helps them understand why it's not a good idea, rather than someone just saying to them, that's not a good idea.
Yeah, and after you've taught them the decision-making model, and then you teach them, oh, when you have used alcohol, your ability to make a decision, especially in that moment, is inhibited. What is the consequence of that? And you see the light bulbs go off, and it's funny to see the teachers really get engaged, especially if they're a very science-focused teacher. So they're always really interested in that lesson as well. But yeah, you really see the light bulbs go off for the students, and they start to connect everything that they've learned throughout the course of the material.
It's interesting that you say, because you're right, first of all, actually, your generation and my generation, proved that approach didn't work, right? Like,
Yeah.
it's simple as just say no, like, oh, maybe kids don't listen to adults all the time. So it's fascinating. But I do like that, because you're right, like, it's rare. I mean, people still smoke cigarettes, traditional cigarettes, but that's not what kids
Right.
do anymore. It's all, those companies are smart, right?
Yes.
They adjust,
They
and
have
then
evolved
you
also.
adjust too. So I give you kudos to focusing on what's really relevant, and particularly, obviously vaping, but also I know marijuana use is, very topical right now because that whole conversation is changing. So big kudos to you, but also, and I will also say, because we're very much a data-driven organization.
Yes.
And we've, student assistance program, I believe, started in 2000. I think it was 2000. I know both of you were not
I didn't
in
want
high
to say
school then,
anything,
but,
Sean,
but we've been tracking the major indicators around alcohol, tobacco, and marijuana use. And I can wholeheartedly say, ever since the student assistance program came into the schools, the binge drinking, which is, the drinking to get drunk, for lack of a better word, and anybody that has teenagers or been a teenager knows what I'm talking about. That has dramatically decreased
Right.
ever since you have come into the schools, because when we talk out in the public, and I always ask the question when we go over that indicator, I'm like, at what age would you start educating kids about drugs and alcohol? And they're always like, oh, high school or middle school. And I'm like, it's too late.
Yeah.
So at 5th grade is when, right before they go into that middle
Right.
school, is the appropriate time to start educating them on the consequences.
And honestly, I touched on the 5th grade Too Good for Drugs program, but we also have material for students as young as kindergarten. We are in all of the K through 8 schools and all of the elementary schools, and in 3 of the middle schools as well. And there are ways to teach and prepare students without having to teach them directly about marijuana, without having to teach them about alcohol in kindergarten if that's something that a parent or an instructor is not comfortable with. Those skills that I mentioned that are the first 7 weeks of the material can be taught at any age and are appropriate at any age. So if you're teaching a 5-year-old how to set a goal, how to regulate their emotions, how to make healthy decisions and work through that decision-making model and slow themselves down, then as they get older and they are faced with substances or other behaviors that are not ideal, they're able to self-regulate. Of course, with support from the adults in their lives that care about them. But
So I noticed that both of you are wearing green, and I think there's a reason for that, or at least maybe coincidental, but I know you wore green for a reason. And I don't think it was to blend with the.
Maybe I just knew what was happening.
I don't think it was to
It was
blend in with the
camouflage?
plants. Yes.
Yeah.
So tell us why you're wearing green and how that relates to the program.
So it is, it's for National Depression Awareness Month, which ties into a lot of elements of what we do. It's also National Bullying Prevention Month. The color is not green for that, but we do see sometimes depression, unfortunately, as a side effect of bullying. So got my green on today.
Well represented.
Yes.
So in addition to, we focused a lot on the substance use prevention side of things, but you guys have sort of a large cadre of curriculum that you can administer. You talked about being in the elementary schools, but there's some other things that you focus on too, bullying being
Yes.
one of them. So talk a little bit about that program.
So we also, excuse me, we also have a curriculum called Too Good for Violence, which to the kids we present just as a Too Good program. And it's focused on similar skills to the ones that we've already discussed, but also conflict resolution, identifying bullying and how to stand up against bullying. It's building self-confidence and teaching kids how to stand up for each other as well and recognize behaviors that you want to see in the classroom. And I tell this story a lot because it's one of my favorites, but the kindergartners learn how to be peacemakers. And so when classrooms go through the curriculum, we start seeing you know how kindergartners are, they echo what they hear. And so over the course of time, we hear students that will say, oh, that's not what a peacemaker would do, or a peacemaker would share right now. And so they really start to kind of parrot what they've learned. I really love that it also gives the teachers new vocabulary to use in the classroom, because we know that teachers can use all the support that they can get. There are not enough resources out there to meet every child's needs, no matter who the teacher is. There are some wonderful teachers, but any support that we can give them, any help that we can give them to provide a culture in their classroom of resolving conflicts in healthy ways, treating others with respect, and all of that is just, immense support.
Yeah, that's very cool.
And so, okay, and this is one of those programs, correct me if I'm wrong, I can't, if I have a fifth grader or an elementary school, I can't call and say, Casey, I want my child in your program, because you're in all the schools, right?
Right, yes.
Right. So that's why we haven't given the number out yet.
I can tell a parent when their child will receive the curriculum.
Okay.
Because we do go through each school year, the schools are put into a round, and there are 3 different rounds that we go through to make sure that we get to every school, and to also make sure that schools receive it at different times each school year, because to be honest with you, most schools want the earlier the better,
Right.
because we have testing later on in the
yes.
year.
Yeah.
And it's
quite
not
a
fair
coordination.
yes, it's fun.
So is the primary delivery of the service classroom-based? And I'm saying that, so let's say you're in a classroom and a child, discloses maybe they're using substances, or, something to do with bullying or something. Is it all classroom-based, or is there one-on-one or group activities that you can address some of that?
So if we have a student that is that has admitted to one of our prevention specialists or to someone at school that they are regularly using substances, then we are going to work with them to refer them to the appropriate level of care, because we are prevention. That's a student that is in need of intervention. So we're going to connect them to Drug Abuse Treatment Association or one of our outpatient facilities, depending on the need. But if we find out that maybe their older sibling is using, or maybe they're saying something like, well, marijuana is legal now, so I don't think it's that bad for you, that would be a student that we would want to work with individually with individual prevention sessions. So the schools or the parent can refer a student to us. And I like to look at it as just extra support, because we're still using those evidence-based materials that are meant for the general population. So there's not a single child in our community that wouldn't benefit from these skills.
Right.
And I tell the students all the time when I'm teaching, I learn right along with them. I may have taught it 100 million times, more than I can count, but there's always something new that I pick up depending on the person or the group that I'm working with. And I think that's something that's really important for parents to know, is if your child is referred to our program, it doesn't mean there's something wrong with them. It doesn't mean there's something wrong with your parenting. It just means that we can educate them on something that will set them up for a lifetime of success, and give you, as a parent, resources as well, because we send home resources with the students that we work with. We communicate with the teachers and with administration about ways to support that child, because we know a child's not an island. They need as much support as possible to translate what they're learning into their regular environment.
Well, and really, truthfully, of all the skills that you mentioned that you kind of focus on through both of the programs, it's literally raising or identifying ways to be a healthy, productive, successful person.
Right.
At any age,
Right.
honestly. There's probably some adults that would benefit from that. But,
I do.
to your point, it's not trying to single kids out for whatever is happening. It's really just kind of trying to come alongside them and
Yes.
give them the supports that they need.
Yes.
So you've opened that window. So you said that parents could call you if you
Yes.
think so, because this is what we do well on this program. You have to give out your contact information.
Okay. So my cell phone number is 731-803-9198. And that's the easiest way to reach me, because I am in my office, but it is sporadic because I'm doing things like this. My email address is C as in Casey, Wood with no S,
Singular
I know we
word.
say a tree, not a forest. And that's at nhtcinc.org.
And fun fact, you can find Casey's contact information on our website.
Oh, her cell
It's a
phone number?
great resource.
I don't know that
Probably
your
not my
cell phone number is
Yeah.
on
But
there.
if you send me an email, it's in my signature.
If we weren't
There you go.
tethered to our chairs, I'd give you a high five for giving out your cell phone number. Because,
Sean's favorite thing.
yeah, because, when people call, sometimes it takes courage to build up to make that call, right?
Yeah.
For
And when you
sure.
call, you don't want to get like, oh, press 1 for, like it
Right.
kind of like, they're like, forget it.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
yes.
a cell phone's
And I
more
want to make
direct.
sure that that's not a barrier to any families or individuals in the community that need the resource.
Well, and certainly too, parents could talk with administration at their school.
Yes.
Some schools are lucky enough to have a prevention specialist full-time. I know I'm going to give a shout out. This information is not necessarily public yet, but we did recognize one of your prevention
Yes.
specialists this month as our Community Impact Award winner. So shout out to Rakisha,
Yes,
who
we're
is
very proud of her.
who is housed at White City Elementary full time. And I know we've been there a couple
Few
times
times, yeah.
recently, and the administration just has amazing, wonderful things to say. So they can talk to school and find
Yes.
out if there is a prevention specialist on campus
Right.
or when one will be there. So that's an opportunity also.
Yes.
And I want to reiterate, just in case somebody's watching, and you already hinted at it, but I just want to make a point of emphasis. The curriculums that you teach, the Too Good for Drugs, Too Good for Violence,
And also Botman Life Skills
Botman
training.
Life
I
Skills.
didn't mention that one because we were talking about Botman.
yeah, but all that stuff is state approved, St.
Yes.
Lucie County approved. It's met all the
It's
criteria.
evidence-based.
Just want to make that very clear
Yes.
to anybody that's watching.
Well, and I will say too, because I have been involved in conversations where parents have asked questions about the curriculum, and Casey is always very good about sharing materials, showing what conversations are happening. And so if there is someone who has a high level of concern,
Yes.
that's absolutely on the table.
Yes.
And
They can see whatever they
Too
need.
Good for
Absolutely.
Drugs, Too Good for Violence is a curriculum that's been around for a bit. It's utilized by a lot of boys and girls clubs. It's
Yes.
definitely best practice, research based. And I can't applaud you enough for working with 5th grade and even younger, because if we're going to prevent it,
have
I
to
hate to
start
say it, but
early.
if you're doing it in middle and high school,
It's too late.
that horse, what's that expression? The horse has left the barn?
Stable?
Sure,
Stable?
yes.
Yeah. I'm just making stuff
If it
up, but
wasn't
it's too
a thing
late.
before, it is now. Yes.
I'm not saying it's too late, but it's better to address.
Early.
Yes,
and
you're
like
right.
you said, the curriculum isn't all about like don't do this drug, don't do this drug. It's all about looking at the future, setting life goals. How do you get to that goal?
Yeah.
Building up those resiliency and that
Yes.
preventive
Yes.
information.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And, I do hear occasionally from parents, I don't know if I want them learning about that in 5th grade. They already know about it.
Yeah. They know more than you think.
Sometimes they're
Sure.
saying things in the classroom that we're like, oh, we're going to have to look at that. Is that new?
yeah.
And we follow the data. We look at, what's happening. We communicate with law enforcement and others that are experts in that
So
arena.
next year when you come on the show, we're going to say it's been
What's new?
genius that you moved to 2nd grade.
Well, let's hope not.
I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
But you're right. True prevention starts the
Earlier.
earlier we can provide the skills to the students, the better.
So Casey, we have 30 seconds left on the big clock. Before we go, give out your contact information one more time.
Okay. My cell phone is 731-803-9198, and my email address is cwood@nhtcinc.org.
One tree, not multiple trees,
One
not a forest, one wood. All right. Thank you
you,
so much,
Casey.
Casey,
Thank
for coming
you.
on. Thank you, everybody, for watching or listening. A reminder that it's a weekly radio program every Sunday on 104.5 The Flame at 10 a.m. If you miss a radio program, don't worry. You can download the podcast. Just look up Community Connections with Children's Services Council. And, of course, thank you to WLX TV for allowing us to do a video version of the show. Simple reminder that it's our community, our children, our future. Now more than ever, folks, we're all in this together. We'll see you next time.